So we've covered the east portion of my yard. I'm going to start walking towards the center of the yard. Back to the tangerine that we looked at, and the Persian white mulberry. You can see a path here. This path was installed in 2017. The point of this path was really to plant out, again, a tropical set of plants to join together the two sides of the yard in an interesting way, with bamboo arching overhead and the Royal Poinciana in the middle. So this Royal Poinciana is about 2 years old versus the 3-year-old that we saw earlier. Okay, on either side of this Royal Poinciana are Alphonse Carr bamboo. They're a dwarf variety, so they're not going to get all that large. That was really, again, microclimate builders help protect this tree. Royal Poinciana is sensitive to frost. By having some biomass, by having bamboo nearby, it's going to help thwart wind and frost from settling on this tree. Here's a nice stand of giant timber shoot. This is definitely not mature at this point. Only 2 years in the ground, but you can see really beautiful culms on this. And these get quite thick on the culms as well as the height. Culms can reach 4 inches in diameter. Height, in Florida, in its natural habitat, it's going to be 50 feet. Here, probably not going to achieve that. Behind this giant timber, and next to the white guava that we looked at, is a Marseille black fig tree. In my top 3, for sure. Really good berry fig. Next to that, we have a gold kist apricot, one of the best varieties of apricot to grow here. Low chill, does extremely well in our soils here. This has put on a lot of growth in the last year and produced many, many, many apricots for me. It's a beautiful tree. Next to the apricot is this Tikal pink guava, one of my hardiest pink guavas. This really was unfazed by the frost. It's quite tall, as well as wide, always loaded with fruit. Even now it's got some fall fruit that it's set. It'll be ripe in spring. Over here is the curry tree. Curry leaf. None of these trees get protected in the winter. That's one thing, initially when you garden, there's a lot of work. You have to protect a lot of trees, both in summer and winter. Your soil is not going to be all that healthy initially when you start. It takes time for the soil to really break down and the nutrients to go in, the worm life to thrive. So things get easier over time for sure. This is a new one I recently put in. This is a star fruit. It's in a really nice microclimate here. Don't expect any fruit to set on this one just yet, since it is such a young tree. But you can see it's flowering right now. It's doing well in this little environment. See if I can just pan up here so you can see the canopy. in this area. So I'd say that's the big change from this year over last, is just the amount of growth. The vegetation in this yard is very lush. This here is a Black Mission fig tree, one of my most mature fig trees. It has many grafts on it that I put on in spring. See if I can go through these quickly. This right here is the Longue Dute, French variety. This one is an Ischia Black. Right here we have a White Azores. This one in the bag is a Motoso Prado. There's another White Azores. This here is Italian 258. Got a Figo Prado in the middle there. This branch coming up here is a Black Greek Marius. This one is a UCR 18725. This is yet another 18725. Here we have a Black Provence. Another Ischia Black that you can see is fairly riddled with FMB. That's fairly characteristic of that variety. Here we have a Col de Dame Blanca Negra. This is a Vasilica Sica. This is a yellow long neck variety on this tree. Pretty easy to take a good rootstock like Brown Turkey, Black Mission, and graft onto it. Over here is an in-ground Wuhan fig tree. This is a honey variety of fig. And this right here is a graft of Sangue Dolce. This one's interesting. This is a tropical, rather subtropical. This is a type of Eugenia, so type of cherry. Cherry of the Rio Grande. This tree will burn up when it's young, its first couple summers, if you don't protect it. This is year 3, unprotected, did fine. No fruit this year though, but they're very cold hardy, down to the 20s. 20s didn't phase this plant at all. This massive fig tree is an Lsu Tiger, Misty sugar fig, packed with fruit. This is one of my later varieties. It puts its heaviest fruit cycle on in fall, it seems. But every branch is fairly loaded with figs. So nice productive variety. I do have one graft on this tree. This is a Pingo de Mel. Next to the Lsu Tiger is an Olympian Fig. This was purchased as a tissue culture plant from Wellspring Nursery online. $5, I believe. Very, very tiny plant. This fruited its first year, which is fairly uncommon for a tissue culture plant. It produces a fairly good sized honey fig. And unlike other honey figs in our climate, this one actually can ripen decent quality fruit. There are a number of other fig varieties to cover, but at this point I'm going to pull out from the detail of those plants and take you to the other side of the path. So in front is the Royal Poinciana that we looked at from the other side a little bit ago at the beginning of this video. You can see got some artichoke planted there, another type of clumping bamboo, mudabolus, that was planted in spring. And either side are another couple of giant timber, clumping bamboo, to 2 years ago. This is edible. Here in my garden I have a mix of flowering shrubs as well as fruit trees, just for diversity and to attract pollinators in. I've got some hybrid tea roses. It's a red variety called Ingrid Bergman. People's Princess. Have some gardenia. This is a large Inca Gold Plumeria that I planted a few years back. Some more gardenia. Lantana. The hummingbirds love the lantana. Here in front I have a potted frankincense plant from a cutting that I started of bamboo. Bambusa eminensis. Some lemongrass growing in here. This is a white Genoa fig tree. And here you can see I planted this frankincense plant, again, a cutting that I rooted myself. And I planted this in spring, and it is quite amazing what this has done this year in terms of growth. Nice size trunk on it, developed a lot of branching. While you can always grow frankincense in a container, their growth is more stunted. It just doesn't do as well as it will directly in the ground. Here I've got a clump of the Buddha belly, Bambusa vulgaris. I have a few plumerias planted over here, some tuberose in the ground there. And then these I just pruned back. So this is the acerola, or Barbados cherry. There are a couple cherries you can see. They go from flower to ripe fruit in 30 days, so short fruit cycle. You probably have one more cycle of fruit on this before it gets too cold. This is a great plant for our climate. Very easy to grow, great for beginners, and can tolerate the hottest part of your yard. This too has been chopped back. This is Dorf Mulberry. I do this every year, chop this back. Grafted this sweet lavender on in spring, and you can see the graft has really taken hold. The branch that sprouted from that graft is as thick as the rootstock. So I actually had another one take, but it was in a bad position growing inward, so I took that out. That's pretty easy to graft your mulberry tree to get multiple varieties. This will be flush with growth again in spring. So again, roses against this west wall. All different varieties of hybrid tea. fragrance is incredible on these. This is a tropical pink guava. I'm not sure which cultivar this is. I've had this one for a few years now, along with most of my trees. It can take full-on sun. This is one of the most brutal locations in my yard. What will happen though is, because of the intense sun, you'll notice that fruit there is blackened. So your fruit can sunburn if you've got a guava in full sun. As these get more mature, the canopy will protect the fruit more from the sun, direct sun anyways. You can expect hundreds of fruit from your guava, your pink guava trees. So they do really well here. Roses too, as you can see, do quite well here. In summer they're not going to look very good. They're going to just survive the summer. But every other season they look quite nice. Key lime. This was mad with growth. It was overtaking everything, so I did prune that back pretty heavily. This produced too many limes for me to even use. So you can see a lot down at the bottom there. Along with every other kind of citrus, key lime is very easy to grow here. Here I've got a Bourgeois Gris fig tree. A lot of the fig trees you'll see have fruit on them. They should ripen. We still have quite a bit of time before we're going to get into a frost situation. This tree is the white sapote. I bought it as a Subel 5 years ago. It's been transplanted multiple times, and it's fruited very prolifically for me this year. It's gotten to be a good size. Still have a few fruits hanging on. The canopy, you can see, is pretty pronounced now. This is an overlook tree, one that can be very productive for you. Just takes a few years of shade protecting it in summers. Over here I have a champagne fig tree that's in ground. Champagne, being a honey type fig, struggles quite a bit in our heat of the summer. Seems to be a little bit more sensitive to sun. You'll find that the fruit will scald, drop prematurely, or if it does ripen, it'll be quite rubbery, inedible fruit. Knowing that I could not get decent fruit off of that variety, I used it as rootstock, and it has been phenomenal what this has done with the grafts. I put on high-end grafts. Here's an example of the graft union. You can see there. This was put on in spring. So this is a Hativ d'Argenteuil. This in here is a combination of Martinenca Ramada and Figo Prado. I have a Bass's favorite here. Some more Hativ d'Argenteuil. And then that up here is a Black Madeira. I had a Black Madeira in the ground as well as the Bass's favorite. Both declined and I actually pulled them. The roots didn't do anything, and it could have just been that I had poor quality starts. You know, if a tree doesn't take off for you, something like a fig tree that should have no problem here as far as growth, there could be something wrong with that tree. Anyways, this is just a testament to how successful you can be with grafting. You know, I have a 5-in-1 tree with this. I was just very careful about preventing the rootstock from taking over. Every time this tree would push out its own branches, I would remove them. And that allowed the grafts to heal and get the energy they needed to produce. So if you've got a fig tree in your yard and you don't really like the fruit, but it's a beast for you in growth, don't pull it. Utilize that. Graft onto it. Experiment with different varieties, see what you like. Okay, over here is a black sapote. And this poor guy was uncovered in the winter. I didn't protect him. 3-year-old tree. It was doing quite well, but with that freeze we had with the mid-20s, this froze back to essentially the main trunk. And the main trunk wasn't all that big. So all the branches were cut off. And this has come back. Quite amazing. So, you know, above my height, about 6 feet, lush. And the trunk is strengthened. So black sapote is doable here. It actually does best if it has a companion nearby, something like this white sapote that's providing some protection for it. I actually think these two are great companions for that, as the white sapote can take the cold and is an evergreen. If you're in a borderline area where you get 20s often, black sapote may not be a good choice because it did get severely damaged in mid-20s. Here I've got a Scots black fig tree. All my fig trees I planted out in 2017. So 2 years of growth. I grafted onto it, but I didn't really take care to stop the rootstock from growing, and you can see it just took over. This is the Longan Kahala variety. Longan is another overlooked tropical tree. It's actually quite easy to grow here. It, unlike some other tropicals, didn't get set back in the winter. I did get fruit off of it this year. Not as much as in past years. Looks to be a little chlorotic, so I need to come out here and give it some iron. But these are pretty pH adaptable. You know, I'm not really trying to change my pH soil too much. Of course, all of these trees are in heavy mulch, tons of worms in there, creating worm casting, so that does help the soil out a bit. But I'm not doing anything to really change the pH as far as adding, you know, soil acidifier or anything. So Longan does well here. It can fruit reliably for you. Again, probably first year, you know, have a companion tree for it. It's not going to like to be out in the middle of your yard. It'll fry up in our summer with no protection. Okay, next to this Longan, I have an in-ground fig tree, Texas everbearing. This is quite an established tree that it holds many, many grafts. So I'll just go through these quickly. This branch here is a strawberry teardrop. See the figs in here. This too is strawberry teardrop. Very productive grower. This branch is a graft of Del San Juan. Some grafts of the Bordesat Blancanegra up there. This here is Smith. These two branches are the Adriatic JH. This is another graft of Adriatic JH. This is a graft of Smith. Here we have a Genovese Neuro AF. Figo Prado. excellent variety called Socorro Black. There's a Macedonian dark in there. A red Lebanese Becca Valley. This is a graft of a Galicia Negra knot, mystery fig. Some speculate it might be a Col de Dame Blanc. At the back of this Texas Everbearing, I did let a few of the rootstock branches grow. This is what the fruit looks like on this variety. You can see the birds got those since I didn't cover it. So despite really cutting these fig trees back in winter, you can see how much growth they put on this year as compared to last year. This is what I believe to be a Col de Dame Noir. I really haven't had fruit off of this tree, properly ripened fruit to tell. But I did graft in spring another Col de Dame Noir. So the thought was to compare the fruit to see if my rootstock is true to type. This little Dorf fig tree is one of my favorite. This is a Pistillier. It's a French variety. Puts off fruit that's really interesting in flavor and texture. This is a Smyrna quince tree. I found that quince trees really aren't all that common here. You can see it looks similar to maybe a pear or an apple. Quince is very common in Eastern Europe. You don't really see them in the stores here, but it's a wonderful tree to grow here. It's quite easy. And it's in my video where I discussed the easiest fruit trees for beginners. For that reason. Here's a Aromatnia fruit that I got from a graft that I put on 2 springs ago. Super productive fruit tree. These can't be eaten raw. They're not really meant for that. You really have to cook them down. But they have incredible flavor once you cook them down. Another in-ground fig tree, Lsu purple. A few grafts on this one. I've got a Genovese Nero AF. Here we have the red Lebanese Becca Valley graft. And here's another graft. This is the Cochio Verdial. Another very easy fruit tree here is the Anna apple. Very productive. And here I've got an overloaded Meyer Lemon. Now this Meyer Lemon's quite mature. This is actually one I was growing in a container when I moved to this property 7 years ago. So this is actually an 8-year-old tree. Meyer Lemons can take some time to become this productive. But it's just overloaded. Down there you can see all the fruit in here just clustered. And this is a Dorf. It's pushing probably 8 feet at this point. Okay, so we left off with that Pistillier there. This in the ground is a green Greek. This is a really good fig. Has a really tasty berry pulp. Quite productive. Despite pruning this down, you can see how tall it's gotten. And I've got figs way up on the top branches there. It's a little difficult to get. That's why I really highly recommend keeping these within picking height, pruning them down to about waist height each year, as figs do grow on new wood, their main crop anyways. Here I've got a unknown pistilier that's grafted. This is a Northland Fig Tree. Some fruit forming there. Okay, in front is another fig tree. You can see a theme here. This is the Lsu Scots Yellow. It's not one that was officially released by LSU, and it is my favorite honey fig. It actually does really well in our climate. The figs don't turn rubbery, and it has a really nice taste to it. It has tones of peach in it. You can see it's quite tall, just like the green Greek, way up there, 8 feet. Lots of figs. This is a graft of Cochio Verdial. That too has some fruit going. Straight in front is a Eureka Lemon. This one was planted 6 years ago. It always produces a huge harvest of lemons. And you can just see these clusters of lemons. Very productive. Probably only need one lemon tree here. Another fig tree. This is Atriano. This is supposed to be a dwarf, but it too has grown a lot this year. You know, I wasn't as religious about pinching my figs, which is pinching the top growth. It encourages fruit rather than vegetative growth. So you can see by not doing that, these have grown really tall. And I didn't get as much fruit this year, so there was definitely something to pinching. I'd recommend it even in our climate. Despite having a long season for figs, might as well get more fruit. Here's another dwarf. This is a Violet de Bordeaux. A very productive variety for our climate. And over here I've got another fig called White Adriatic. We've come full circle now. I'm just going to wind through this path here. The last section of the yard to show is the Plumeria Garden. This was almost completely replanted in spring. The freezing temperatures in winter killed off almost my entire collection, so I started over this year. So I've got a Plumeria called Sahara there. This one is Queen Amber. That one there is Flamingo. Exquisite. Most of these are varieties I got from Jungle Jacks in California. Gemini. This was one of the two survivors here, California Sunset. Divine. That one is Firestorm. This one down here is Tangerine Dream. That there is Veracruz. El Corazon. This is 4222 or Casem's Delight. That one there is Wildfire. Ken's White. This one in the corner is Incognito. And this is the second survivor. Oddly enough, this is a Thai variety that you would think is more cold sensitive, but survived the freeze. And this one is Fet Pachara. So I hope you enjoyed the tour. That was a long one. That's why I split it into two parts. The main purpose of this was just to show you what is possible in 3 years. And, you know, looking back and seeing my first tour back in 2016 and how things have evolved and changed over time. Hopefully this gives you some inspiration and encouragement on what's possible in our garden zone. Clearly we can grow a lot of diverse things. We can get into tropicals with some protection. We can definitely do subtropicals here, and stone fruit. It's good to have a mix of these things. As you know, we might have colder seasons, so we get more stone fruit. Or opposite, we'll have warmer winters and get more tropicals. So it's nice to have a mix in there so you optimize your fruit production. And I just want to say thanks to all of you that have been following me over the last 3 years, have seen this garden grow from the beginning. I appreciate all your support. And if there's a topic that you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments. If you have questions, please let me know. I try to answer your questions as best I can. Wishing you all a prosperous and bountiful garden. As always, thanks for watching and happy gardening.